we're not giving up on this absolute failure by governments, plural, to do what needs to be done on drought. This is a national disaster and it should be declared as such. Instead, as one person prominent in the media on the television side texted me yesterday to say, after I talked about the fakery of the dam projects, Alan, they're building new dams just like they're cutting the price of power and taking the school curriculum back to basics, all just words, phrases that show up in focus groups to win votes, hot air. I'm going to talk in a moment to Joel Fitzgibbon, Labor's agriculture spokesman. He's done some homework and his electorate is slap bang in the middle of some of the finest pastoral land in the world, the Hunter Valley, gripped by perhaps the worst drought ever. Scott Morrison was in Dalby a couple of weeks ago. I know the place backwards. I was born there, in Oakey Hospital. Out came a press release, pages of it, announcing, quote, a new support package that will deliver nearly $100 million to drought-hit communities. I've no idea who is advising the Prime Minister, but they're feeding him untruths. Of course, it couldn't be the Deputy Prime Minister, McCormack. He's supposed to represent the bush. He's clueless, hopeless and an embarrassment. And parliamentarians know it. They just laugh at him. Has the Prime Minister ever thought of calling in 20 farmers? I'll name them. He could ask them what assistance they've received. My old man rarely swore, but his answer would be simple. Bugger all. You see, there's a drought future fund that's been announced by the government, $5 billion. That money's not available until July 1 next year. Anastasia Palaszczuk has written to Mr Morrison, I have the letter, dated August 21, quote, I'm requesting your consideration of accelerating the commencement of the $5 billion future drought fund from the current start date of 1 July next year, unquote. No answer. There's also a drought response fund, $4 billion. That money's not available. The legislation to provide it is stuck in a Senate committee. Then there are the millions of dollars donated by Australians. Where is that money? Who's accounting for it? Which farmers have seen any of it? Joel Fitzgibbon has asked the Morrison government where is the final report by the Coordinator General for Drought, Major General Stephen Day. He was appointed in August last year. The Federal Agriculture Minister David Littleproud, who should know better, he's from Western Queensland, Chinchilla, Littleproud says the report is, quote, subject to the deliberations of Cabinet, unquote, and, quote, may be released at a later date. Anyway, Littleproud has become a climate change apologist. The drought is a consequence of climate change, according to Littleproud. What the hell are we on about? The Morrison government should be declaring this as a national disaster and applying all the resources of the nation, including the army, to address this disaster. There are only two issues. One, save the farm. Two, save the farmer. Saving the farm should be easy. There is fodder and water available, but the farmer's broke. The government, the army, should get the fodder and the water from where it is to where it's needed. Pay for it and pay the freight. How many trucks does the army own, for God's sake? Then you save the farmer. He's broke financially. But what is worse, make no mistake, he is psychologically destroyed because he feels abandoned. The farmer needs money, not some concessional loan. It is not the government's money to hand out. It's our money, taxpayers' money. The same money we gave to Donald Trump to put some bloke on the moon in 2024. The same money, billions, we give to this ridiculous Paris Agreement. The same money we give to foreign aid. The same money we gave, $1 billion, bang, quick, smart, overnight, for Indonesia when they were hit by a tsunami. It is not government money, it is our money. Stop talking surpluses on some self-indulgent ego trip. Save rural Australia, it's on its knees. The Toowoomba Chronicle newspaper headline today, quote, fears of mass exodus from drought-hit Queensland. What it's saying is there'll be nothing left by Christmas. And to cap off the insult, we've got this nonsense about building dams. When I heard of this, I checked with the Prime Minister's office to see whether he actually did say on July 22 in an interview with me, quote, dams that are currently or have been built since we came to power, unquote. I said, give me a list. They stupidly did. This is the ultimate farce. I checked the list. 15 of the 21 have no harvesting of water. They're not even dam projects. The other 6, you'd struggle to call them projects to harvest water. Mile up south of Perth may start next year. The Southern Forest project south of Perth has no timetable. The Rookwood Weir southwest of Rockhampton won't start, if you're lucky, until 2020, and if it does, won't be finished until 2024. The big rocks weir, southeast of Charters Towers, has been on the books for 30 years. There's no timetable for it. It is a weir, so one day it might harvest something. McLaren Vale in South Australia is a storage proposal. It's for recycled water. It's got nothing to do with harvesting stormwater or rainwater or floodwater. And the last of the 6, the Emu Swamp Dam, southwest of Stanthorpe, well, it's admittedly a dam, but they won't receive any evaluation report until next year, and God only knows what happens next. I'm sorry, the federal government must think we're fools. They are prosecuting a lie. I suppose they don't believe there are galoots like me who actually sit up all night, do the homework that the government should be doing. Let me say emphatically, when it rains like hell, as it will, this country has no project of any kind ready to harvest more water than is currently the case. And for 3 of the most productive land areas in the world, the Darling Downs, the Hunter Valley and the Liverpool Plains, which, if properly and reliably watered, could feed the world, not a single sentence for those districts. On water harvesting and drought-proofing this country, Canberra and its useless bureaucracy know nothing. Perhaps we can prevail upon Joel Fitzgibbon to read the above into Hansard. Perhaps the only course available to us is to shame the Morrison government. Joel Fitzgibbon joins me here and Peter in Melbourne. Joel, over to you. What do you make of this?
Well, it is very disappointing, Alan, and, you know, for the last 6 years, Labor has extended a bipartisan hand. In fact, Anthony Albanese recently went to the Bush Summit in Dubbo and basically wrote an open blank cheque and said to Scott Morrison, look, whatever you want to spend and you need to spend more, the Labor Party will support it. We don't want this to be a political view. Our farmers are struggling, our rural communities are running out of water, our rural landscapes are on fire, and government just needs to do something.
Well, my concern is the government's telling us lies. I mean, they're telling these farmers... I was with farmers in the Hunter Valley in your electorate, in fact, at the weekend. You referred the Auditor-General. You've written to the Auditor-General on the 1st of October. You referred him to the media release dated Friday, September 27, which referred to the government's latest drought package as, quote, a new support package that will deliver nearly $100 million to drought-hit communities, which is on top of, this is the press release said, the more than $7 million in drought support funding already provided. I've already indicated to you there's not a cent of that available. Have you seen evidence of the $100 million, and have you heard from the Auditor-General? You wrote on what, October 1?
Yeah, the Auditor-General has responded, and he said that my request is under active consideration. I think that's encouraging. I'm not sure he does that on a regular basis. He gets plenty of requests. And I don't see, given the interest he's shown in this, how the government can now say, no, don't do this. I think he needs to do it. Scott Morrison keeps claiming he's spending $7 billion.
Which is rubbish.
Alan, I mean, ask any farmer. And I was with some farmers on the weekend. They've not seen 1 cent of this $7 billion. And people would be right to ask the question, well, if you're spending $7 billion, Prime Minister, where in the hell is it?
Where is it?
So we want him to tease that out. We want him to run the ruler over all of these claims and all of these programs. We saw that one particular program for councils, which went to a shire in Victoria, which wasn't in drought. They gave up the... They had a special council
Let's go to Peter,
meeting.
because Peter knows the Victorian scene backwards. Peter, I mean, I just keep saying, why won't they declare this a national disaster and apply all the resources of the nation? Because I'll tell you what, if they don't, by Christmas, the rural sector will be dead.
Oh, look, you're absolutely right to be asking questions of where the money's gone, and I listened carefully to Joel Fitzgibbon there saying that Anthony Albanese wanted to meet the government in the middle and be very bipartisan in that, which is a great thing to see. I mean, we tend to do it on Indigenous issues, by and large. They do it on defence and national security. But, you know, why isn't there a fortnightly meeting between the two counterparts, the Prime Minister and the Leader, and the two shadow ministers, the Minister and the shadow ministers, to progress this, to stay on top of donations, to see where that $7 billion, what can be possibly brought forward? I don't understand it. I also don't understand, if Joel Fitzgibbon is supportive and Labor is supportive of a bipartisan approach, why the latest round of legislation to fund initiatives is stuck in the Senate. I mean, Labor and the government should gang up, bring it on, cut the Greens out of it, cut the crossbench out of it, and move this legislation on when Parliament returns. But I think people have had enough of the politicking and the pretend support, the pretend money. They want to see it hit the ground.
Absolutely. See, Joel Fitzgibbon is a metaphor of the problem, of both the ignorance and the dishonesty of the government. Now, his electorate is right in the middle of this mess in the Hunter Valley, and when they gave money to councils, the federal government declared Muswellbrook in your electorate in drought, right next to Muswellbrook. You drive from Singleton to Muswellbrook, it takes you 20 minutes or something, but Singleton's not in drought, and they're both in a hopeless predicament.
Yeah, exactly, Alan, and you know, I'd love the Prime Minister to take the short drive from Muswellbrook to Singleton with me to fully understand that local government boundaries don't recognise climate, or climate doesn't recognise local government boundaries. These are two shires in exactly the same situation, yet one shire is getting the money and the other is not.
Well, I spoke to farmers. You tell me, you're talking to farmers. Just let's look at this picture. Joel Fitzgibbon, when he goes into the... Explain what this picture is. This is a picture he sent me today. The top of the picture is the farm. Just explain that.
So Alan, this is a dairy farm just outside Gloucester in New South Wales. The picture at the top was taken in 2015, and the picture at the bottom was taken not that long ago. Now, this is a relatively large dairy farm, so it's got economies of scale. The farmer there knows his stuff. You know, he's embraced the most efficient farming methods, the latest technology. He has consultants in to help advise him on how to lift productivity and efficiencies. And this guy, as good as he is, and given notwithstanding the scale he has not been... I mean, no one can deal with that, Alan. I mean, that's just is the reason.
But I spoke to these farmers at the weekend. They haven't seen a cent of this money. We've prevailed upon Australians, Peter, to give money, and Australians are very generous. Where is this money? Who's accountable for it? Joel's asked for the report of the drought coordinator, and they said, oh, you know, it's confidential. It's a cabinet document.
Yeah, well, look, you know, Joel knows... Joel knows and I know that that's not appropriate. They can certainly redact anything that might be cabinet in confidence or subject to internal government discussions, but they can put a redacted report out very publicly and very quickly. I don't buy that for a minute. I don't buy the claims that Barnaby Joyce didn't have reports and all the other arguments. I mean, I think the government's making itself the political issue here. No one can make it rain.
That's a very good point, Peter.
No one can make it rain.
This is a political issue now. It's a very good point.
It is now a political issue.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got the drought. They've got this future drought fund of $5 billion. It doesn't start till July next year. There's then this thing called a drought response fund. It's locked up in federal government legislation. You've got all the money that everyone's given. No one's seen it. I spoke to farmers in the Hunter Valley. They haven't seen a cent. And they, just to understand, they're on the bare bones of their backside. Where is my phone? I've, just as I came on here tonight, received a text message from a farmer knowing that I was going to discuss this stuff. And the farmer said this... this is a farmer, a young farmer. I spoke to an 87-year-old matriarch of a great farming family today. She was a treasure trove of weather history, and she knew all the floods, all the booms and busts and droughts by their name. There was the Federation drought, she said, and the Great Depression drought, and the wool boom, and the 60s drought, and the 74 floods and the 80s drought. She then started to talk about this big drought and how it's driving her family and her friends to the wall. And then the bell rang. She kept referring to this drought as the broken-hearted drought. And I said, where did you get that name from? I've never heard it called that before. There was a long pause, and she said, it's the broken-hearted drought, dear, because that's how we feel when our own government walks away and leaves us all to perish and die. There are your pictures. That's not an exaggeration. I had a farmer say to me the weekend, we just can't feed this stock anymore. This is where we are, and I just think Scott Morrison and these people have really got to wake up. They're pig-headed, they're stubborn, they think they know everything. Most of them have never been on a bloody dairy farm or a beef farm or any kind of farm at all, but they know best. If this isn't a national disaster, what is? Well,
Alan, I said the time for touring is over. The time for doing something is now. And, you know, you talked about Scott Morrison making that announcement last Friday. In fact, he made two announcements. One last Friday and one the Friday before. Now, that doesn't sound like... That sounds like policy on the run to me, and I think you'd agree. There's no strategic plan. There's no forward outlook. There's nothing really...
Josh Frydenberg, sorry, talks about drought freight subsidies. Now, Josh, I know you're watching everything. You'll have an answer to every sentence we've uttered here because the bureaucrats will tell it to you. Freight subsidies, forget it. That means you're asking Farmer Fitzgibbon to pay some and the farmer, and you'll subsidise the rest. They have no money to pay the freight. They have no money for the fodder. Wake up, Josh. It's not your money. It's our money. When I first got a job for Prime Minister Fraser, writing speeches, Alan, don't forget, every time you write something, write in the fact that government have no money of their own other than what they take from the taxpayer. Malcolm Fraser made me say that every time he made a speech. This is not your money, Josh Frydenberg, on an ego trip about surpluses, while people out there are perishing and are absolutely at extinction door. Oh, dear, Joel, thank you. We'll keep at it. We'll keep at it. The only course, we might shame them into doing something. Good to talk to you.
Pleasure.